Hello, and welcome to another episode of Orgullo Hispano. This is a podcast put on by the Hispanic Leaders Network. My name is Hector Sabido, and before we introduce our guest for today, I do want to thank our sponsors that have made Orgullo Hispano possible. We'd like to thank the Leadership Empowerment Group, Wilkerson Hatch Bailey, and of course TFNB, Your Bank for Life. Thank you, sponsors, for all of your time, dedication, and investment in Orgullo Hispano. But I would like to introduce our guest for today. I am sitting next to Isabela Lozano. Isabela is a native Wacoan, and I'm going to let her tell you about her story. But I mean, this young lady, a native Wacoan, Waco ISD graduate, is finishing her college career in a couple of weeks. Entrepreneur, and so many more things. And so, Isabela, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your time and willingness to be in attendance today.
Of course. Thank you so much, Hector and Hispanic Leaders Network, for having me with y'all.
So we want to start off with, if people don't know you, which I would find that very hard to believe. Tell us a little bit about you, Isabela.
Sure thing. So I'm Isabela Lozano. Uh-huh. I was born and raised here in Waco, Texas. I'm a class 2018 University High School graduate.
Go Trojans.
So once a Trojan, always a Trojan. A product of Waco ISD. I'm currently at Texas A&M University finishing up my degree in electronic systems engineering, and I'll graduate in December. Lord willing, everything happens well, right? And the owner of Hope by Isabela. So I have a small business that works with local artisans in Mexico, and I sell beautiful handmade garments here in the Waco and Central Texas community.
So we'll get to Hope by Isabela in a little bit because my wife is a fan. So we have a lot of your products in our home. But tell us a little bit. So your dad is from Mexico.
Yes. Sí.
Your mom is first generation American, so her parents are from Mexico. Tell us the upbringing that you had and how it was, being raised. I mean, because even in a predominantly Spanish-speaking home, how were you and your family, your brothers raised? And tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Sure. So Spanish was my first language up to the age of 7. Now I struggle with the Spanglish. I'm not as great in Spanish and not as great as English. I still kind of mixture, but I am 100% bilingual, fluent. As much as I try to read and write it. Growing up, we were, mainly Spanish. My grandparents, as you stated, were born in Mexico, so there was no other form of communication with them. It was all Spanish, and to this day, my grandmother says that she refuses to learn English because then her great-grandbabies and grandbabies won't know Spanish. Sure. And we were in a loving Christian home, my two-parent household. We were here in South Waco. My brother now lives in that home that we were raised in, our childhood home, and now we are in my mom's childhood home. So my parents, we are all a really tight-knit family and have tried to maintain together in the same small South Waco community here. It was awesome, loving home. My mom has always been in education, so she was in some school or someone knew her. My teacher, principal knew her, right? So it wasn't much trouble or curiosity that could go on at school with her being so close to us. And it was awesome. Me and my older brothers, so I have 2 older brothers, and I'm the only girl. So I was always the consentida, I was loved and preferred because I was the only girl. And
La princesa de papá.
Yes, so I would do everything with papi, and my mom was always in school, which was the only thing that has now allowed us opportunity to further our education as her children.
Tell us about your mom going back to school, if you don't mind.
So my mother was a mother of 3, working a full-time job and being a full-time student at McLennan Community College, our local college here. And I just remember if it wasn't my dad braiding my hair in the morning before his shift, it was my mom really late overlooking my homework and making sure it was accurate. And we both had a great relationship with both my parents, and they were both very well, they were there with us, but they still struggled to, give their full attention to us just because of those daily battles with school. And like I said, she was a full-time student and a full-time mom. Whenever we didn't have a babysitter, my dad was working extra late. She would take me. The boys could stay home. You know, they were older. They were older. They were had their friends. They would go to the boys, you know, their friend's house, or my cousin or uncle would hang out with them. But me, I'm the baby, so I'd go with Mama Lozano, and she would take me to school with her. And her struggle has shown me and motivated me, like, you know, do it while I'm young. Go to school before I get married, before I have babies. And I'm not saying that it's bad, but, you know, there's different battles that come with that. And I was firsthand experiencing that with my mom. And every time that she went through something, she was like, you know, for y'all to learn that I do this for y'all and I sacrifice so much. And vice versa with my dad. He was working late hours, and he was like, you know, I want y'all to go to school and further your education, so y'all don't have to battle and miss those long hours with your children. And that's how it was. So she graduated with her bachelor's at an older age. So she was over 30. I don't want to say her age. But whenever she did her bachelor's, and then she furthered it up for her late 30s for a master's. So she was persistent and determined to, you know, further her education and give us an opportunity at life and kind of give us another chance of excelling in those parts of our lives.
And now she's principal of Kendrick Elementary.
Yes, so she is the principal there.
One of the few Hispanic principals that we have in the school district here. And it's really just, I consider her like a beacon of hope and positivity, that I know whenever she can help someone, she is willing, and she goes above and beyond what's asked of her.
For sure. So she has a heart of gold. I love her. Like I said, we're now in her childhood home. So where her mom planted that seed of giving and, you know, opening her home for breakfast and giving for the kids that need a coat or shoes, or if there's kids playing in their bicycles and they're not as great, she goes and asks them, you know, what do y'all want for Christmas, or how can I bless y'all, how can I help y'all? And that's just her, and they don't have to be her students or her children or her family, even if it's her neighbor or her community and she sees a need, she's there. So she's great.
So Isabela, you know, going back to you, how was it? You know, because I would consider you Gen Z, correct? Yeah, yes. Gen Z. So, you know, I know that there's maybe a lot of differences of Gen Z, and especially the generation before you and a few generations before you. How was it going to school, speaking predominantly Spanish, growing up in a household where maybe that wasn't Americanized as some of your friends' homes? What was that experience like?
It was definitely neat. I enjoy it. I embrace my Hispanic heritage, but like I said, I would struggle. I still to this day struggle and say funny things. And my friends who are, you know, born and raised in Mexico, in the United States for many years, where their English is awesome and I'm still, you know, struggling.
Sure.
So I guess being raised in the home, it was more homemade meals, and it was more, you know, we would go all out for the different Hispanic Heritage Month and days, and we would always celebrate. I always had trenzas. My mom would always do my trenzas, and it was just what we loved. We knew how to do it. I had thick curly hair, and we would always do it. So different ways that we highlighted those Hispanic traditions and heritage. And when I could, I would speak Spanish to my friends, and even if the friends that weren't getting English as good, I was able to be that kind of bridge between my teacher and my classmates that didn't know Spanish, and I knew English and I knew Spanish, and I was able to translate. And to this day at HEB, when I work there, my small business, I'm always able to kind of be more open with those language barriers and helping them. So it's kind of a way that we were different, and even helped the community around me with my Spanish speaking.
What are some of the things that you grew up with in your household, in your home, that maybe at first when you were younger you didn't appreciate them as much, but as you've gotten older, you're grateful that your parents have instilled that into you?
Yeah, I would definitely say that they were very protective. You know, I'm the only girl, and their boys, they could do whatever, but their baby girl could not. So I didn't sleep over many people's houses, and I didn't just go over many of my friends. My mom would always say, no, tráelos aquí, you know, bring them here, and we'll have the boys go, because, you know, if they were girls and they were younger. So that was a big deal. You know, my friends, like I said, that have been here for many that kind of got worn off with their parents. They were more open, and they would get dropped off at La Feria, and they would go to the movies. And I was like, Mom, but they're going. I was a little 13, preteen, wanting to go to the basketball games by myself in middle school. And it was more like, okay, when are we going,
That's right. Yeah.
And that I feel like has made me who I am today. I love, I'm outgoing, but I'm still very observant and aware of my surroundings, and kind of mama always instilled, be safe, learn who you're with. And always, it was a saying like, don't get around different bad parties or vibes or spirits. So it was very Christian and the typical protective home. So I also didn't watch any of the scary movies,
Wow.
So the Hispanic culture and the Christian culture was like, if you let those espíritus like in you, like, don't do it, because they're going to open the door to something.
Right.
And to this day, I still don't. And now that I'm older, I built my own relationship with Christ, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to do it, And back then it was like, well, my friends are watching the new Halloween movie or Hocus Pocus, and something, that was so small to me back then. And I was
but it was so big for you back then.
Yeah, and it was big for me back then. And now it's like, now I kind of see where, my mom wanted us to kind of build our own relationship with Christ and be like, okay, maybe it was wrong. And typical, so those are some things. We always went to flea market, so we loved being at the flea market Sunday mornings, Saturday mornings, whenever we were available. And it was just really cool. That's something so small but traditional. It was mainly Spanish-speaking people at the flea market, and we would always bargain there, and that's what we had fun doing. And that was a big thing that I'll carry forward with my future children and marriage, and say, this is what we did back in the day, because we were probably struggling, but Mama didn't let us know that was a family event that we all got up. My brothers would be so upset waking up early, but we were there early and buying the cool toys. So those are some cool little traits that I'll take forth.
It's funny you bring up the flea market, La Pulga.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people realize the staple that it is in a traditional Hispanic, Latino home. And so to have something like that here in Waco, I think it's awesome, man. It goes to why it is always so busy on the weekends, because it's more for families. It's more than just going out and shopping and bargaining, but it is a piece of home for them. And I think that is awesome that your parents also raised you that way.
Yes, definitely. I love it. To this day, we're going to have our first grandbaby in the family. First great-grand. It's going to be everything. My sister-in-law is pregnant and due in November. Yeah, so we're so excited for baby Lozano. And to this day, my mom's like going to buy the little dinosaurs. He's due next month, and he probably won't even hold the dinosaur for
another
months.
Year.
Yeah, but she's like, I found all these dinosaurs for $20, and she's there cleaning them and Cloroxing them for the babies. And I'm like, this is just awesome that we'll take forth this with our, with our babies and my brother's baby, and we're excited. So that's a big part, like you said, a staple in the Hispanic culture and in the Waco community.
Correct.
So I hope it stays strong for sure.
So you graduated from University High School, went on to, are going to finish your bachelor's degree in a couple of weeks. And so congratulations ahead of time. What has your experience at Texas A&M been like as a Latina, as a female, as a person of color in Central Texas? What has that experience been like?
Yeah, so A&M has this myth of how, it's like really segregated, but A&M has, through recent years, of course, I'm no one to speak with before my generation, but they've tried to really integrate all the different cultures and language barriers. There is a, it's called a Society of Professional Hispanic Leader Engineers at A&M, and they're actually been throwing a Latinx graduation ceremony that's only in Spanish for my grandparents, my parents, on the day after graduation. So it's been awesome. There's of course still those boundaries with your peers and in classmates, and you'll hear smart comments and and not only as a Hispanic, but a Hispanic lady, in engineering and in STEM. And, it's like, well, I can do, X, Y, Z. And, well, Isabella, do you need extra help? And comments like that, where it's like, we're sitting in the same seat, where there were no different.
Kind of like those passive aggressive comments.
Yeah, just kind of those little slugs you would say now in our
Correct.
Gen Z generation. Or maybe I didn't score as great of an exam because ultimately, like I said, I'm a product of Waco ISD, so I didn't have all the nice private tutors that everybody did and extra lessons. And now, thankfully, university has grown so much.
Absolutely.
And their electronics and STEM major degrees that they have and those academies that they have. But back then, there wasn't circuit analysis and this in-depth physics where now there is. And I always kind of saw that boundary between those people and students who come from, Sugarland and the Woodlands or, Highland Park in Dallas, and they all go to A&M. And I'm like, well, I'm from Waco, Texas, proud.
Yep.
And it's been awesome. There's been some kind of adversity with it. Your teachers, you kind of got to ask more for help versus, if you're struggling, and they're not struggling, then they're like, oh, we're good, let's make the test harder. Where now I have to speak up and say, hey, Dr. Goulart, or Dr. Zahn, I'm struggling with this, or help me, guide me with this, and seek out those own resources for my own self. Just because, like I said, I don't have all the tools, but I'm hoping that one day my kids will have those tools, right? And then it'll just be continuous, and we'll keep growing slowly but surely. And I'm so proud to say that my mom's a campus principal, and then one day my kids, that's what I tell my mom. I'm like, one day my kids would say, my mom's an engineer,
That's right.
and an electrical engineer at that. So it's beautiful to see kind of what I've started in my own self. And I kind of use that as a motivation and say, one day my kids will have that upper hand and have those tools and resources, and also makes me want to reflect and say, how can I help my community, right? How can I help those girls who are like me and a little intimidated.
Coming up behind you though also as well.
So anytime anyone reaches out and says, Isabela, how did you graduate university with MCC degree, or how did you graduate university debt free or A&M debt free? So I'll be graduating debt free.
Awesome. That is amazing.
Yeah, and it's awesome. I'm so grateful. Like I said, my mom went to school, so I was debt free without having that first gen, scholarships. But I tell people all the time, there's so many scholarships, and a lot of students are really limited and don't have the resources. And I know, like, a lot of my dad's friends have younger kids, and they're, Spanish only. Their parents are still kind of where my parents were.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, if your daughter needs help, reach out to me. I messaged on Facebook today, and it was like, my niece needs help with scholarships. Could you? And I'm like, of course. I have a list of everywhere. I even know more scholarships, and hopefully my prayer is one day I'm successful enough to get back to my own community, and provide a yearly scholarship. And it might be small starting up, but hey, one day that will multiply.
There you go.
That's kind of how it's gone through A&M. Is with the adversity, it's given me motivation for my children and for my community. How can I help them? How can I sow a seed within them and tell them, I was a university student in that chair with you, we were no different. My mom still lives in the barrio, we're still in the Waco, South Waco at that. So
I'm proud of it.
Yes, for sure. We're not moving anytime soon. So for anyone watching this, I always tell them, if y'all need help, Isabela Lozano on Facebook, Instagram, y'all feel free to reach out to me with all that information.
So tell us a little bit about Hope by Isabela, which I love the concept that you've done. And this is, you are a business owner. You are, if you don't mind me, 21, 22 years
22,
old? 22 years old, entrepreneur, about to receive your bachelor's. Tell us more about Hope by Isabela, and where can people find it?
Sure. So Hope by Isabela is helping others prosper economically.
So it's an acronym. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
And Hope by Isabela helps preserve the traditions and culture of the artisan's work through these handmade garments and accessories that I bring back from Mexico. And my goal, like I said, is to help them prosper economically and give back to them in any way and help keep buying from them, without trying to bargain or get a great deal or wholesale. No, just buy. Every single piece has a price, and I pay that times whatever I buy. And I just hope I'm helping them in that way, and then spread it to my own community. So not only today in this month, this Hispanic Heritage Month, do I celebrate, my beautiful Hispanic heritage, but every day,
Right.
and I share the Waco community, and I say, come, celebrate it with me. I invite you to come to my culture and represent my community that we have here in Waco. And sure enough, that's kind of how it got started. My grandfather is a missionary in Oaxaca, Mexico. He's been there for 11 years now. And I would travel during high school to go visit him. And I would bring back garments and accessories. And everybody would say, where did you get one from? How can I get one here in Waco? And I kind of stirred something up in me. I knew there was something needed here in the Waco community. And if it was in Waco or outskirts of Waco, it would be super expensive, And so I was like, I want to do something, but I don't want to, overly price it. And I also didn't have tons of money to just buy everything, So I started small, and I was doing it through my living room during COVID-19 and Facebook.
Is this a Hope by Isabela piece?
It is. So this is a fully embroidered blouse from Oaxaca, Mexico. You can see my different
beautiful
embroidery here. Beautiful. It's all handmade. And it started slowly like that, and I just launched off through Facebook, and then I did my little mobile boutique through markets, and now we're over 5,000 followers on Facebook and Instagram, and we've shipped to about 15 different states here in the United States, and we've gone to about 7 different states, or I guess peninsulas. I don't know what I know Mexico is a little bit specific on where they go, but they're states to us, right? So it's been awesome. That's kind of how it started. And I of course, my grandmother was a big giver, and she would sew a lot in her community as a pastor's wife. My grandpa's a big giver and gives back as much as possible to his church and his community. Then my mom, so I kind of had always had that in me, right? And I wanted to do something to further that in my generation.
I love that.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And I enjoy sharing everything with everyone.
Yeah. So let me ask you one more question before we end today, okay? The name of the podcast is Orgullo Hispano, Hispanic Pride. Sí. What is Orgullo Hispano to you?
So Orgullo Hispano to me would be speaking Spanish, right? And eating the beautiful homemade Mexican cuisine and food. And just representing it in all positive aspects, being nice to someone and saying, wow, that Hispanic was nice, right. And being able to be a translator at my job, and all of that combined and so much more. Going to Mexico, I just became a Mexican citizen through my dad.
Congratulations.
Sí, soy una orgullo mexicana,
Felicidades.
¿verdad? Y ahora sí puedo skip the line and at the airport, and going back and, giving back to my Hispanic heritage and culture, and showing my future kids Spanish and Orgullo Hispano. Yeah, it's what it symbolizes to me, is being strong and confident in who you are and your Hispanic heritage, and representing it every single day of the year, right? And trying to be a light to this world through my Hispanic heritage and language.
Awesome. Isabela, it's been a pleasure getting to know you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you for being here. And thank you to our audience. I would encourage you, please look for Hope by Isabela. You will see her at pop-ups. You will see her at different vendor markets. And I'm sure she has something that you will fall in love with. Before we end today, again, thank you so much to our sponsors, the Leadership Empowerment Group, Wilkerson Hatch Bailey, and TFNB, Your Bank for Life. Thank you and take care.
This episode of Orgullo Hispano was made possible through the generosity of these sponsors. The Hispanic Leaders Network is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. Our vision is to develop and empower current and future leaders to make a difference in the community. To sponsor a future Orgullo Hispano podcast episode, email hlnwaco@hln-waco.org or visit the HLN website at www.hlnwaco.org.